Hi, good evening. Today I did a webinar training session for Hindustan Petroleum Corporation. I just thought I will encapsulate some of the main points in that training program and then put it up as a YouTube video, and that's the whole purpose of this recording. And the training is in the art of persuasion. Even though it says art of persuasion, we need to remember that persuasion is both an art as well as a science, which deals with both parts of the human brain, which is the right part and the left part. So without much ado, let me start the training session. In this training session, we will be looking at an introduction to the concept of persuasion, what it is, and then we will go back in time and then try to draw some leaves out of Aristotle's teachings, and then we will discuss about what an argumentative persuasion is, non-argumentative persuasion is, because many a times what happens is subconsciously we use certain words in our persuasion which works against our objective of reaching an amicable settlement. We are not in a position to achieve our persuasion objectives because of certain strategies, certain wrong words, etc., which we will cover in the section on argumentative and non-argumentative persuasion. Then we will, of course, look at some 7 important steps to master persuasion. And, of course, we will have finishing remark in terms of how we can assimilate the trainings, learnings from this small webinar, and how we can put it in use in our respective area of operations. Now, as far as the concept of persuasion is concerned, it is used everywhere in the world. But normally when you put out this question in terms of what is persuasion and where is it maximum being used. In fact, today I asked this specific question in the training webinar, and most of the people said it is used in sales and marketing. Yes, it is used in sales and marketing. But let's not limit its scope only to sales and marketing. It is used everywhere in the world, whether it is a HR department with union leaders, or it can happen between countries. For example, a special envoy of India meeting the special envoy of China to resolve a border dispute. Persuasion is involved. A father telling his son to take up a specific course after his +2, that is also persuasion. It happens between lovers. It happens between husband and wife all the time. Persuasion is part and parcel of everybody's life, and that's the power of persuasion. So to sum it up, persuasion is nothing but certain factors that will influence the other person to say yes, right? And as we have discussed, persuasion is both an art as well as a science. There is a science behind persuasion, which we will look at after a few slides during the course of the training program. Okay, these are poll questions. We may not be able to do a poll in this webinar, right? So let's go back in time to Aristotle's time when he explained the concept of persuasion. This typically means persuasion existed even during those days. So typically when we talk about human beings, every human being has its own line of thinking. And at some stage or other, in the course of everyday life, everybody wants to persuade, right? So in the process of persuasion, Aristotle has come out with 3 very important factors in persuasion. They are logos, pathos, and ethos. Let me explain to you what is a logos, pathos, and ethos. First is logos. As it clearly implies, logos means the logic behind your discussion, the logic behind your standpoint. Secondly, it is pathos. Pathos consists of some of the emotional elements which are considered while you are persuading somebody. That's the pathos, emotional elements. And third is the ethos. Ethos typically talks about the ethics and morality. The ethics and moral aspects of any persuasion exercise is covered under ethos. So in short, we can say large logos deals with the statement of facts, for example, statement of facts, figures. For example, if you are persuading somebody to buy your car, let's talk about a car salesman. When he's persuading somebody to buy a car, he talks about the car's DHT, he talks about the length, the width, the height, the special features in the car, the safety features, etc., etc. All these things are facts and figures. The second one is the pathos behind that, the emotional elements. When you typically talk about emotions, it talks about not just the facts and figures, but in the manner in which those facts and figures are presented to the customer. Those emotional. Are you able to strike a rapport with the customer with whom you are interacting? Are you doing things that establishes trust in the customer's mind? These are the pathos behind that. Typically the selling techniques, how well you speak to them, as you say them, what is your body language, are you showing conviction in your talk? All these things are pathos. I have worked in the automobile industry for quite a long time, and it is natural that some of the examples will be from the automotive industry. And also because car is something that everyone has, and the moment I talk something about cars, examples about cars to substantiate these examples, the learning becomes a lot more effective, and that is the reason why I use some examples from the car selling industry. Right, and the third aspect is the ethos. When you talk about ethos, it's the ethics and moral responsibility. Ethics and morality typically means we will not try to manipulate, and we are not talking about manipulative sales techniques. Like there are a lot of definitions in the market that the best salesman is the one who is able to sell a comb to a bald man, or who is able to sell ice cream to a guy in Greenland, etc., etc. Those are all false definitions. In fact, even during my sales training programs, I come across a lot of sales participants who ask me, there is a proverb like this, so we have to, spread the net, we have to hunt the customer, we have got a murgi today. I've always said that these kind of languages should be avoided completely. Because we're not looking at short-term sale numbers, etc., etc. Short-term profits are not long-lasting at all. And that's one thing that I always incorporate in all my training programs. So that's the ethos part of it. So persuasion, whenever we do persuasion, we need to keep in mind the ethical principles, right? So that is what it is typically involves, the logos, the pathos, and the ethos part of it. So in short, we can say the logos deal with the left brain part of it. We discussed persuasion as a science. Here is where the definition of science fits into this persuasion. The second, we talked about the art of negotiation, and that's exactly where the pathos part of it fits into the definition. And then, of course, we have these ethics and moral principles. We can say that's the legal aspect of any persuasion exercise. Okay. So this is what is the Aristotle's definition of these things. And let us see how well it is implemented in various industries. There are two kinds of persuasion. One is an argumentative persuasion, and the second is the non-argumentative persuasion. Argumentative persuasion typically means you force your opinion on other people, forcing one's opinion, driving your point across. So these are things that can put the other person to a great disadvantage. It might appear that they are listening to you, but over a period of time, you will fail to establish trust. That's one of the pitfalls of argumentative persuasion. But you can be very sure of putting your point across to the other person, because that's the ultimate objective of any persuasion exercise. But at the same time, we need to keep in mind that your persuasion, your efforts of persuasion should not be seen in the manner that you are pushing your ideas across. That's one thing. And the second is non-argumentative persuasion. If you use these principles, if you adopt these principles, then obviously that becomes non-argumentative kind of persuasion. Yes, we have a poll question and then we will talk.